managing behavior with positive things like music.
You are listening to the Alzheimer's Podcast with Mike Good of Togetherness, your #1 resource for practical tips and insights, empowering you and your family to live well with Alzheimer's. Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Alzheimer's Podcast. I'm Mike Good of Togetherness. Welcome back for another podcast where my goal is always to empower you to maintain a positive experience, reduce and eliminate the need for medications, and make your time together with those you care for the best it can be. I am super excited for today's show. It's the first episode where I'm going to have a special guest join us to share their expertise with you. Now, you've likely heard about the benefits of music in dementia care, but for many of you, including myself, we don't necessarily know how to incorporate music and maximize its benefits on a daily basis. That's why I've asked Mary Sue Wilkinson of Singing Heart to Heart to join us. Now, if you've been following Togetherness for a while, then it's likely you've already seen some of Mary Sue's work. She previously joined me for a 1-hour webinar, and she's a contributing writer for Togetherness. Mary Sue is the founder of Singing Heart to Heart and the Young at Heart music program. She specializes in using music in dementia care, and each year she leads more than 400 music and singing experiences for seniors. Mary Sue is a career educator and a professional musician and the author of Songs You Know by Heart, a simple guide for using music in dementia care. She also works as a trainer and as a keynote speaker, sharing her expertise about the power of music to connect, awaken memories, and bring joy. Hello, Mary Sue, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. I'm so happy to be back working with you. This is great.
It is exciting. Mary Sue joins us from Traverse City, Michigan, and I'm out in San Diego, California, so you got to love the technology.
That's right.
And Mary Sue, if you want, why don't you go ahead and get started and just tell us, the audience, a little bit about yourself and Singing Heart to Heart.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, I'm a professional musician. I've really been singing since I was 12 years old, and my mom bought me a guitar. Thank you, Mom. And I've grown up with music. It's always been a big part of my life. And as you mentioned, I've been a teacher and done lots of different things in education. Right now, I live in Traverse City, as you mentioned, and the most exciting news in my life is that I have a new grandbaby, my first, and he's 9 weeks old, so that's my big news. But Singing Heart to Heart really grew out of some experiences I'd had working with my father-in-law, and for me, it's the most wonderful work I have ever done in my whole life, and I've had a lot of great jobs.
So Mary Sue, your father-in-law, did he have a form of dementia?
He did. We never determined that it was Alzheimer's, but he had dementia. And he had gotten to the point where he really had lost all language. He, other than gaba, 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 that was what he always said. He had been a Church of the Brethren minister, and music was a really important part of his life and our family life. And when he lost the language, of course, it became really hard to visit with him. And I just took my guitar one day just in an effort to entertain him. And I started singing all the old Southern gospel songs that he knew, and he sang every word. I mean, I had no clue at the time what was going on. I was just amazed, but he sang every word. He had perfect pitch. He added harmony, and he did this for song after song after song. So, that experience really stuck with me. And as my life was transitioning and I was looking at doing something else, I thought, I need to revisit that. And so I started learning more about what was going on with the brain, and of course then connected with Teepa Snow, and it all began to make more sense. And I realized that that's perhaps a profound experience for him. I mean, it's not absolutely the norm, but it's also not unusual.
Right.
So I really learned how music can reach so deep into us.
So Mary Sue, I'd like to just kind of clarify something for myself and the audience. You said that he couldn't speak, but some gobbledy kind of talk, but yet he was able to sing and have harmony. Is that what?
Right.
Is that
yes.
That's just
exactly.
That's absolutely amazing to me, and I have seen that before, where people who, not necessarily just with dementia, but any kind of traumatic brain injury, that part of the brain where you can sing is how they're able to still communicate, and that's just I said amazing again because it is.
It is, and excuse me.
No, go ahead.
That for me, it was so profound because it was something that we could do together. That was just, I really realized that he was no longer isolated. I wasn't isolated from him. It was something that made us happy. It was really profound.
That's neat. So I imagine caregivers listening to this will be like, yeah, but you're a professional musician. You knew how to play a guitar. That was your comfort zone. What would you say to them, or what advice would you have for them to approach a situation like this to hopefully bring out that part of their loved one?
Well, I would say that it's the music, it's not the musician. So you do not have to be a professional musician to have this, to have this work. And of course, you may not experience that same thing where your loved one suddenly can sing the words. But I'm absolutely sure that it will help you connect with your loved one if they are living with Alzheimer's or dementia. And that is because we've really learned, and they're doing a lot of research on this, about the brain. Music is linked to emotions in the brain. It literally lights up, when they look at this in scans, music lights up more parts of the brain than any other human activity. So the brain is damaged, it's shrinking, and so you want to access as much capacity of the brain as possible, and it's literally stored in a part of the brain that is somewhat less affected by the disease. So whether you're a musician or not, whether your loved one was a musician or not, the brain is still linking music and emotion. And that's what's so powerful. So for those who want to try this, I would say, don't hesitate because you don't feel like you're a strong musician. We have technology that you can use to have other people sing for you, or your own voice is always, of course, wonderful. That's, you don't have, there's no tryouts for this. There's no audition to sing with your loved one, right?
Right.
But keep in mind that it's the songs of your youth. If you're a spouse, perhaps you've shared that same teenage, teen, young adult years. So, and don't worry that you might not be able to think of songs. That's one of the things that I've realized for myself. So somebody will say to me, because I am a professional musician, "Oh, play a song," and I'm like, I don't know. That happens to all of us, So on my website, that's one of the reasons I've published some song guides and lists, and they're by decade. So you figure out how old somebody is, count back through to their teens and early 20s. Even their childhood, take a look at those songs and try some things out. Right,
yeah. And there's a couple of things I want to mention that you made me think about. And first is, we talk about how the music can help, it's emotional, and it can help lift spirits and alleviate anxieties. And in the webinar we did together on, I think it was called How to Ensure Success with Music, you said, before Prozac, there was music.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes.
And I wanted to make sure I shared that with our audience.
And, that's true for all of us. And this is one of those times when you want to remember that, yes, they're living with a brain disease, but they're still there,
right.
And the things that affect us. You're driving down the road and you hear a song that was your favorite in high school and you suddenly are singing along. That's the same sort of thing that can happen.
Right. And you have a guide, maybe that's not the right word, but you have the Finding Memories Through Music, a family interview that's available on your website, because you just mentioned how to try to find the right music, and that guide, I recommend people in our audience to visit your website, and I'll provide a link in the show notes, and register and get that guide and go through it, and that'll really help. It was very thorough, and I thought you did a great job, Mary Sue.
Oh, thanks. And it's free. All you have to do is share your email so I can send it to you.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
yeah.
Another thing you mentioned was how we can literally see that the brain lights up when people are listening to music. And I've seen that, and I recently shared something, and you may have seen it, where they've taken it a step further now, and they show that people who are playing a musical instrument, it even lights up more of the brain. And I bring that up because in the webinar and in the article you wrote for the Together in This, we talk about movement and incorporating movement into taking it from, as you say, entertainment to engagement. If you can hand somebody a musical instrument, even if it's just a shaker or a tambourine or something, and it seems to me like that would have a lot more benefit as well. What do you think, Mary Sue?
No, absolutely. And our bodies they're just programmed to respond to music. Even at very late stages of the disease, you will still see people, it might be as small as their fingers moving truly, or their toe, or someone that you think, oh, they're not even listening because their eyes are shut. Our bodies move to music, and it's a retained skill. Sometimes people can even dance better than they can walk. So you want to help somebody walk across the room, and very often it's hard to get people started, and that's a function of what's happening in their brain. So even just taking that first step, if you can hum a song with a steady beat, like, I've been working on the railroad, and you might want to just hum it instead of sing the words, because if you sing the words, they might stop and start singing with you. But that does happen. But you give this beat, and that can help people progress. That's something they're using a lot with Parkinson's, people that are living with Parkinson's too now.
Right.
That's a very strong cue. Our bodies are just like programmed to move.
Yeah, so. And that's interesting. And in doing all that, the dance and the doing the things together, one of the top 5 reasons you said music is important in the webinar was to sustain relationships, and that also goes to how that creating that sense of belonging with the individuals. And I think that's just an incredible opportunity that might often be overlooked by our family caregivers in providing care for their loved one.
Yeah, the connection, is, and this is something I would say to family caregivers. This isn't about you becoming some sort of music therapist or you becoming a music teacher or planning a big program. This is about, my advice, I should say, is that you just insert music throughout the day. And those moments of tenderness that you can find if you have a song, maybe it was your wedding song and you dance for 2 minutes. Or you even just sit and stop in your day and pause and hold hands and sing a song together. Or you use it to help someone walk, or you use it as a cue. Like maybe you sing "Let Me Call You Sweetheart" every night at bedtime. Inserting music throughout your day is, and it will help with that connection. I just so believe that, and it may awaken some memories. If your loved one is still talking, that I see that happen. I sing with a woman. I sing "Deep in the Heart of Texas" every time she tells me about her childhood in Texas. And so you'll find the songs. You find the songs, and then it will help you keep that connection. That's a really good point, Mike.
Yeah, that's great. You made me think of a friend I have at the local memory care, and she grew up in Memphis, and we talk about Elvis, and she's got some incredible stories, and I don't know if they're true. I don't care if they're true. It makes for some incredible conversation, and we have a blast. And she always tells me how, remember again, I'm in San Diego area. She tells me how she's there visiting because she's a nurse, and they're doing some work at that community. But we'll talk about Elvis and how he's running around Memphis and causing trouble, and it's just a real kick. And I think we both go away feeling better that day. Absolutely.
And for the family caregivers, just a little reminder, don't forget that music can help you personally, not in terms of care, but just helping you personally relieve some stress. And maybe it's sitting quietly with something peaceful, or maybe it's a rock and dance song where you just get some stress out, So don't forget to take advantage of it for yourself too.
So with that said, Mary Sue, do you have some tips for our family caregivers that you mentioned trying to incorporate it throughout your day, and for the family caregiver who's caring for their loved one at home, oftentimes that is around the activities of daily living, trying to get things done throughout the day. Do you have any top tips you'd like to share with our families to help them out in that area?
Yeah, I guess I would strongly suggest that you think about using music as cues, like I mentioned. So maybe in the morning it's "Hail, hail, the gang's all here." Everybody I've run into knows that. Again, like maybe bedtime, it's "Let me call you sweetheart." It's a great way to distract. I arrived somewhere. Now this was in a residence because I'm not caring for someone at home right now, but and they were really pushing against resisting walking somewhere with somebody. And we just started singing, like I said, that I've been working on the railroad, and literally their attention shifts. Their attention does not, because they have memory loss, it doesn't stay long. So you really can use music to distract to help those grease the wheels. And, the other thing, if they're at a point where they're starting to, maybe they don't recognize you anymore, someone singing with you communicates that they're a safe person. People that aren't, people singing aren't typically there to hurt you, So I would encourage you to use that to keep that connection going. Try to find the most meaningful songs that you can. If this is a close family member that you're caring for, look back. What were those songs? And if you don't remember, just look at the guides that I have are by decade. And all this stuff is free. It's on my website under resources. And it'll jog your memory. Did they like Frank Sinatra? Were they an Elvis fan? So choose some really meaningful songs. Then kind of pay attention to see, is that hitting the spot? And if it is, don't hesitate to use it over and over and over, because repetition is your friend. That helps, and it's their friend. It helps them feel comfortable, helps them feel like they're competent. They know what's coming next. And that's a really valuable thing. I would say keep it upbeat and fun. Laugh. Sing The Old Gray Mare. If you're feeling frazzled, I say this all the time to people, oh my gosh, I feel like the old gray mare today. Anybody feel like that? And we laugh and we sing The Old Gray Mare. I guess one of the questions I get often, which is along these lines, is, isn't playing music in the background enough? That's not bad. That's not wrong. It's not the goal is engagement. Your goal is engagement at certain times. And so you don't want to just relegate music to putting it on the TV or putting it on a CD player or radio or whatever. You want to use it to help you connect and have some fun and right. Hopefully awaken the memories. Right.
That's a good point. And I think when music's playing in the background, at some point the brain, we filter it out. And right. So that boredom that you talked about in the webinar, because you said that music's a great way to help alleviate boredom, and that's really, like when I talk about having a dementia-friendly home, one of the 4 elements is stimulation and keeping that engagement and that enrichment active, and because that's what one of the good things that a good memory care community provides is they can keep that activity level up and that engagement up, and that's a real struggle for those family members at home. And we really, when someone becomes bored, they often get into trouble. Because now we're labeling them as a bad behavior when really it just stemmed from boredom, and we want to find ways to keep them engaged and enriched. And you mentioned, and one thing I want to highlight also is observe, be a good observer. We call it being a dementia detective, and watch and pay attention to their demeanor and how it's affecting them. And because I imagine, and I tell people sometimes a song makes me happy, but then other times that same song might make me have a memory of a time in the past, and it saddens me a little bit. So
that's a great point, Mike. That is absolutely true. And when Teepa reviewed my book and added her chapters, one of the things she said to me, which was so valuable, she said, make sure you tell people not to be afraid of tears. So you don't want to necessarily always shy away from a song that can cause that, because if their language is impaired from the disease and the memory loss, that's a way to release emotion and through that. Now, you don't want to leave them there. You don't want to just play sad song after sad song, but it's You Are My Sunshine. That has that effect. For most people, it's really happy. And other people, it's like, gosh, my mom sang that to me, or they remember singing it to their children, and it brings a tear to the eye.
Mm-hmm. And that's very interesting, again, Mary Sue, because we definitely, as you said, music does touch our emotions, and that's the good emotions and the bad emotions. And I always think that maybe the bad emotions we want to avoid and stay away from. So I'll make sure I take that advice to heart. And for those professional caregivers out there who maybe they're helping multiple people at a time in a care community or something, can you share any top tips with them about leading a group of people?
Yeah, absolutely. And my very number one tip is to invite, don't ask. So if you flip your language from, do you want to come to music, to, hey, it's time for music. I'm so excited to sing with you. Let's sing. And you put enthusiasm in your voice, you will get people to come. But if you ask them, do you want to come and sing? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say no. So just flip your language. And it's still important to know your audience as much as possible, and that being a good observer is really important, because you don't have the depth of background, family knowledge that a family caregiver would have. All the things that we talked about for family caregivers really still apply, because you want to be in relationship with the people that you're working with. The one thing that I also would point out is that oftentimes the staff that you work with, they have as big an impact on whether people participate in music as you do. So if you're the activity professional, the care staff, their attitude and their enthusiasm and their buy-in is really important. So if you can be proactive with them, get them on board with you, maybe teach them 2 or 3 songs and help them understand how a simple song really might make it easier for them to provide care. That idea of singing to help somebody feel safe. So instead of just walking in a room and saying, I'm going to, it's time for a shower, walk in and sing a little song with them. Little things like that can make a big difference. Let's see, there's that kind of to that point. There's so much research being done, and you mentioned this, Mike, which I'm so glad, is on using music instead of drugs, managing behavior with positive things like music, as opposed to some of the drugs that are being used that, frankly, can have some really hard side effects. So that's a really important thing to think of. And it's not that it's a cure, that it replaces everything, but it's a tool. It's something to keep in your toolbox.
Definitely. Music is the best medicine when used like you're teaching us. So, and for our audience, I know hopefully we're wetting your whistle, and Mary Sue has so many tips and strategies to share. And again, just a reminder, I will be providing links to everything we mentioned in the show notes at togetherinthis.com/episode 8. So Mary Sue, as we wrap up today, do you have any special stories about a client's success or anything like that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I want to tell you about Ruth. Ruth is a woman, and she was participating in a day program when this specific little episode happened. And I got there, and she was quite agitated. And just, she was in a wheelchair, and the staff, they wanted to take her out. They wanted to have her leave because, they at that point still saw me as entertainment, and they were like, oh, she's going to bother things, she's going to be unruly. And I said, oh, please don't take her out, bring her up to the front. So she came up to the front, and I started singing, and her feet were tapping. She looked like a woman that was really enjoyed physical activity, but she was in a wheelchair. And she was tapping her feet. And so the staff, because they were trying to keep her safe, and not because they were mean or horrible or anything, but they put the footrest down. So that made it harder for her. So then she starts patting her lap. The music is not stopping, right? The movement. She's patting her lap, and she's doing it very enthusiastically and rocking forward. So they gave her a baby doll to hold. And I'm kind of, at this point, I'm like, oh, please don't, it's okay. I won't let her fall out of her wheelchair. But again, they were not trying to be mean or bad. Their job was to keep her safe. Gave her the doll. She looks at it befuddled, like, okay. She starts clicking her tongue and nodding her head side to side. And went from a very agitated, restless person that they wanted to take out to an engaged and happy, smiling person. So that's just one little example of the sorts of things I see virtually every day.
That's an excellent story. And it goes along with something I often tell caregivers, is that safety is often our number one priority with our loved ones, but we have to do it in such a way we don't restrict our loved ones. And I say, the all or nothing approach to care is not the right way. So that's a great example of how they were trying to keep her safe and had the best intentions, but they weren't letting her spirit and soul show, if you will. Right. Yeah. And I never see that, as I've worked at this place, it's a great day program, really. Mm-hmm. I don't see anything like that happen. I think we learn from each other. I learn from them all the time too, right? Because they're doing the really hard, I'm there for a short period of time. I come in and go out. So there's a mutual learning if we can stay open to possibilities of different ways to do care. Absolutely. So why don't you please go ahead, Mary Sue, and tell the audience about your book and how caregivers can use it to enrich their experience with music and their loved one. Yeah, sure. So the book started out because I made a CD of 18 songs, and I thought people would just know how to use it. The CD, I thought, well, I've given them the music, because some people aren't comfortable doing their own singing. So I made the CD, and I made it slow and lower and as a sing-along. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I'll just, give them a little tip for each song. And I guess the teacher in me came out, and it grew, because doing that many singing sessions every year, I'm always learning. And there are just simple things like slowing down, how to add movement, what kind of movement. So the book is full of very easy to implement tips like that. There's a frequently asked questions section. There are some anecdotal stories that I put in just to kind of illustrate things, like it would be like a little story like I told you about Ruth. And then Teepa contributed a section on the GEMS, which is her classification model. And if you don't know who Teepa Snow is, you'll want to find her on the internet. And then we wrote a chapter. I wrote a chapter about music by the GEMS that kind of takes it through the different stages of dementia. So, in a nutshell, that's what it is. This is not a book that you have to sit down and read in one sitting. You can pick it up, and I know you don't have a lot of time if you're working with people that are living with Alzheimer's or dementia. So, I think you'll find it easy to use. And I think I agree our audience will, and it's extremely beneficial. I highly recommend it. And there will be a link in the show notes for that. So, Mary Sue, are you working on any other projects you'd like to share with our audience today? Yes, I am, Mike. I've got the book, but what I've been doing lately is making very short videos. And each video has a little tip. Now, there are 5 of them that I call my little training series on my website. Those are about 5 minutes long. And those sit right on my website. They're also on my YouTube channel. But I've been making each week a little video with a short tip, and it's maybe 2 or 3 minutes. So you can just watch it on my Facebook page or watch it on the YouTube channel.
And I'm doing that because I recognize that if you can just grab one little idea that might help you, sometimes that's all you have time for, right? We all just tell me one thing, please, that will make this easier. So that's what I'm doing with that. And I'm having a lot of fun doing it. And I think it's going to be a really valuable supplement to the book.
Yeah, and those are great and incredible videos. I enjoy them. I too like that they're short because I like my information in short bits like that, and the streamlined approach is something I'm always happy to support. Well, our attention span for all of us has gotten rather short with the use of the internet. That's true. So that concludes today's episode, and I want to thank you, Mary Sue, for joining us.
Well, thank you, Mike. This has really been delightful for me to get to talk with someone else about music and share resources. And I would just please, if you're out there doing care, come to us, come to Mike, come to me for help. We're here to help you, and we will do our best. So thanks again.
Absolutely. And so to the audience, be sure to visit Mary Sue's website at singinghearttoheart.com. And as I've mentioned, you'll find the link as well as all the reference resources in the show notes at togetherinthis.com/episode 8. And if you're enjoying this podcast and you want to help me keep it active, please consider rating and leaving a review. It will mean the world to me. And I can't wait to talk to you in episode 9, where I'll discuss something fun and interesting I haven't figured out yet. But so bye now.
Bye-bye, everybody.
You've been listening to The Alzheimer's Podcast with Mike Good of Togetherness. For more information and to get the resources mentioned in this episode, visit togetherinthis.com/podcast.